Good Friday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for June the 2nd. Today we are reading in Deuteronomy chapter 28. Deuteronomy chapter 28 is on the schedule for us today. Thanks so much for taking the time to read along with me today on this fine Friday. Let me get our text up on the screen for us so we get to reading. Got a long chapter ahead of us, so let's go ahead and be checking out what the text has to say for us here within this section. This is the chapter that really gets into much greater detail concerning the blessings and curses that were going to be associated with this covenant that Yahweh was making with his people. Really, just to set this up as we're reading it to have a good understanding of what's going on here. This particular treaty, as it is, this covenant treaty, it really follows the common framework of an ancient Near Eastern treaty. Again, the Bible has a context, and it's written within that context, within a way in which the people in their historical context could understand it. It wouldn't make sense for this treaty to be written in the way a contract would be written today, because that just would not make sense to them, and vice versa. So for us, just as we're reading this, recognize that yes, there is a lot said here about the blessings, but really a lot of it said about the cursings. Why? Well, because in these ancient Near Eastern treaties, these suzerain treaties where the dominant king would have power over the lesser people, you really want to remind them of the fact that they are those who are in subjugation to a higher power. And that certainly is the case here for Israel. They need to be reminded that they did serve a great God and that he would hold them accountable if they rebelled against him concerning the covenant that he was graciously making with them. So keep that in mind as we're reading through this, that this is just the way that treaties worked back then. We have historical evidence of that as well. I think there's something from the Hittites that is pretty well known, and other historical treaties as well from way back when in the ancient Near East. So keep that in mind again as we're reading through this text together. Deuteronomy chapter 28, beginning in verse number 1. Deuteronomy 28, verse number 1. Now, if you faithfully obey Yahweh your God and are careful to follow all his commands I'm giving you today, Yahweh your God will put you far above all the nations of the earth. All these blessings will come and overtake you because you obey Yahweh your God. You will be blessed in the city, and you'll be blessed in the country. Your offspring will be blessed, and your land's produce, and the offspring of your livestock, including the young of your herds and the newborn of your flocks. Your basket and kneading bowls will be blessed, and you will be blessed when you come in, and you will be blessed when you go out. Yahweh will cause your enemies to rise up against you, to be defeated before you. Or Yahweh will cause the enemies who rise up against you to be defeated before you. They will march out against you from one direction, but flee from you in 7 directions. Yahweh will grant you a blessing of your barns and on everything you do. He will bless you in the land Yahweh your God is giving you. Yahweh will bless you as his holy people, as he swore to you, if you obey the commands of Yahweh your God and walk in his ways. Then all the peoples of the earth will see that you bear Yahweh's name, and they will stand in awe of you. Yahweh will make you prosper abundantly with offspring, the offspring of your livestock and your land's produce in the land Yahweh swore to your ancestors to give you. Yahweh will open for you his abundant storehouse, the sky, to give your land rain in its season and to bless all the work of your hands. You will lend to many nations, but you will not borrow. Yahweh will make you the head and not the tail. You will only move upward and never downward if you listen to Yahweh your God's commands I'm giving you today and are careful to follow them. Do not turn aside to the right or to the left from all the things I'm commanding you today, and do not follow other gods to worship them. If you do not obey Yahweh your God by carefully following all his commands and statutes I'm giving you today, all these curses will come and overtake you. You will be cursed in the city and cursed in the country. Your basket and kneading bowl will be cursed. Your offspring will be cursed, and your land's produce, and the young of your herds, and the newborn of your flocks. You will be cursed when you come in, and cursed when you go out. Yahweh will send against you curses, confusion, and rebuke in everything you do until you are destroyed and quickly perish because of the wickedness of your actions and abandoning me. Yahweh will make pestilence cling to you until he has examined you from the land you are entering to possess. Yahweh will afflict you with wasting disease, fever, inflammation, burning heat, drought, blight, mildew. These will pursue you until you perish. The sky above you will be bronze, and the earth beneath you iron. Yahweh will turn the rain of your land into falling dust. It will descend on you from the sky until you are destroyed. Yahweh will cause you to be defeated before your enemies. You will march out against them from one direction, but flee from them in 7 directions. You will be an object of horror to all the kingdoms of the earth. Your corpses will be food for all the birds of the sky and the wild animals of the earth, with no one to scare them away. Yahweh will afflict you with the boils of Egypt, tumors, a festering rash, and scabies from which you cannot be cured. Yahweh will inflict you with madness, blindness, and mental confusion, so that at noon you will grope as a blind person gropes in the dark. You will not be successful in anything you do. You will only be oppressed and robbed continually, and no one will help you. You will become engaged to a woman, but another man will rape her. You will build a house, but not live in it. You will plant a vineyard, but not enjoy it. Your ox will be slaughtered before your eyes, but you will not eat any of it. Your donkey will be taken away from you and not returned to you. Your flock will be given to your enemies, and no one will help you. Your sons and daughters will be given to another people, while your eyes grow weary looking for them every day. But you will be powerless to do anything. A people you don't know will eat your land's produce and everything you have labored for. You will not only be oppressed and crushed continually, you will be driven mad by what you see. Yahweh will afflict you with painful and incurable boils on your knees and thighs, from the sole of your foot to the top of your head. Yahweh will bring you and your king that you have appointed to a nation neither you nor your ancestors have known. And there you will worship other gods of stone and wood, of wood and stone. You will become an object of horror, scorn, and ridicule among all the disciples where Yahweh will drive you. Among all the peoples where Yahweh will drive you. You will sow much seed in the field, but harvest little, because locusts will devour it. You will plant and cultivate vineyards, but not drink the wine or gather the grapes, because worms will eat them. You will have olive trees throughout your territory, but not moisten your skin with oil, because your olives will drop off. You will father sons and daughters, but they will not remain yours, because they will be taken prisoner. Buzzing insects will take possession of all your trees and your land's produce. The resident alien among you will rise higher and higher above you, while you sink lower and lower. He will lend to you, but you won't lend to him. He will be the head, and you will be the tail. All these curses will come, pursue, and overtake you until you are destroyed, since you did not obey Yahweh your God and keep the commands and statutes he gave you. These curses will be a sign and a wonder against you and your descendants forever, because you didn't serve Yahweh your God with joy and a cheerful heart, even though you had an abundance of everything. You will serve your enemies that Yahweh will send against you in famine, thirst, nakedness, and a lack of everything. He will place an iron yoke on your neck until he has destroyed you. Yahweh will bring a nation from far away, from the ends of the earth, to swoop down on you like an eagle, a nation whose language you won't understand, a ruthless nation showing no respect for the old and not sparing the young. They will eat the offspring of your livestock and your land's produce until you are destroyed. They will leave you no grain, new wine, fresh oil, young of your herds, or newborn of your flocks, until they cause you to perish. They will besiege you within all your city gates until your high and fortified walls that you trust in come down throughout your lands. They will besiege you within all your city gates throughout the lands. They will besiege throughout all the land Yahweh your God has given you. You will eat your offspring, the flesh of your sons and daughters Yahweh your God has given you. During the siege and hardship your enemy imposes on you, the most sensitive and refined man among you will look grudgingly at his brother, the wife he embraces, and the rest of his children, refusing to share with any of them his children's flesh that he will eat, because he He has nothing left during the siege and hardship your enemy imposes on you in all your towns. The most sensitive and refined woman among you, who would not venture to set the sole of her foot on the ground because of her refinement and sensitivity, will begrudge the husband she embraces, her son and her daughter, the afterbirth that comes out from between her legs, and the children she bears, because she will secretly eat them for lacking anything else during the siege, for lack of anything else during the siege and hardship your enemy imposes on you within your city gates. If you're not careful to obey all the words of this law, which are written on this scroll, by fearing this glorious and awe-inspiring name, Yahweh your God, he will bring wondrous plagues on you and your descendants, severe and lasting plagues and terrible and chronic sicknesses. He will inflict you again with all the diseases of Egypt, which you dreaded, and they will cling to you. Yahweh will also inflict you with every sickness and plague not recorded in the book of this law until you are destroyed. Though you were as numerous as the stars of the sky, you will be left with only a few people, because you did not obey Yahweh your God. Just as Yahweh was glad to cause you to prosper and to multiply you, so he will also be glad to cause you to perish and destroy you. You will be ripped out of the land you are entering to possess. Then Yahweh will scatter you among all the peoples from one end of the earth to the other. And there you will worship other gods of wood and stone, which neither you nor your ancestors have known. You will find no peace among those nations, and there will be no resting place for the sole of your foot. There Yahweh will give you a trembling heart, failing eyes, and a despondent spirit. Your life will hang in doubt before you. You will be in dread night and day, never certain of survival. In the morning you will say, if only it were evening, and then in the evening you will say, if only it were morning, because of the dread you will have in your heart and because of what you will see. Yahweh will take you back in ships to Egypt by route that I said you would never see again. There you will sell yourselves to your enemies as male and female slaves, but no one will buy you. And that is Deuteronomy chapter 28. There's a lot there, not just in the number of words that are written, but in the significance of these words. So let's think about this for a few moments. Again, this is some of the final words that Moses is sharing with the people before they enter into the promised land and before he is gathered to his forefathers, before he dies. And again, this is set up very much so like your standard ancient Near Eastern covenant treaty. There are blessings and there are curses. The blessings, the really foundational section for the blessings, is verses 3 through 6, where it in much fewer words is a good, concise statement concerning what will be blessed: the city, the country, your land, your offspring, your basket, your kneading bowl. Everywhere you go, going out and coming in, you will be blessed. And a lot of these blessings are going to be associated with the land that Yahweh has promised to bring them into, that it will be a very blessed place. Verse number 10, then all the peoples of the earth will see that you bear Yahweh's name, and they will stand in awe of you. That's really the greatest blessing of all, that they would be God's people and that everyone would recognize them as God's people. But then, of course, we have the other side of the coin, don't we? Beginning in verse number 15 and taking up the rest of the chapter, unfortunately. Here are the curses. Again, they're very much specified what is going to happen when. Really, I guess, thankfully here, we know it is a when, but for them it is an if you do not obey. And this follows numerous if statements from the previous section. Verse number 9, if you obey the commands of Yahweh your God. Going back to verse number 1, if you faithfully obey Yahweh your God. Verse number 13, if you listen to Yahweh your God's commands I'm giving you today. If you do these things, there will be blessings. But if you don't obey Yahweh your God by carefully following all the commands and statutes I'm giving you today, then here are the curses. The same things that would be blessed on the other side would be cursed here. Again, in the city, you'll be blessed in the city, in the country, your basket, your kneading bowl, your offspring, whether you're going in or coming out, you will be cursed. He will send against you curses of confusion and rebuke in everything you do. Really what this is these are normal everyday troubles that people of this time would have to deal with. Again, sometimes in the cities they have troubles, sometimes in the country they have troubles. The basket and the kneading bowl, that would have troubles. Their food would have troubles. The offspring of their livestock would have troubles. Just all these things that God, again, would, in ways in which he would bless them through their faithfulness, he's gonna curse them through their unfaithfulness. And so much of what we see in verses 20 through the end of the chapter are reversals of what we have previously seen. Let me see if I can pick out one real quickly here. Verse number 7 talks about your enemies who rise up against you to be defeated before you. They will march out against you in one direction, and then they will flee from you in another direction. This same thing would be something that they would suffer, that the Israelites would suffer. Verse number 25, you will march out against them concerning your enemies. You will march out against your enemies in one direction, but flee from them in 7 directions. All the peoples, verse number 10, all the peoples of the earth will see that you bear Yahweh's name, and they will stand in awe of you. Instead, in verse number 25, you will be an object of horror and all the kingdoms of, or to all the kingdoms of the earth. What a horrible thing for this people that was once exalted in the eyes of the nations to now be seen as nothing, to be seen as a laughing stock, to be seen as people to be ridiculed and chastised. So again, the blessings of their crops, they are going to be taken away from them. Instead of worshiping Yahweh in the land, the text says that they are going to let's see here, verse 36, the Yahweh will bring you and your king that you appointed to a nation neither you nor your fathers have known, and there you will worship other gods of wood and stone. Again, you will be an object of horror, scorn, and ridicule among all the nations where Yahweh will drive you out. You were exalted, now you're ridiculed. He said earlier in the text in verse, let me see if I can pick it out real fast. Let's see here. Verse number 13. Yahweh will make you the head and not the tail. But going to verse number 44, he will lend to you. This is referring to the resident alien. I remember there's a speaking of status here in verse number 13 as well. You will only move upward and never downward if you listen to Yahweh, your God's commands I'm giving you today. So there's always going to be elevation in your status, not moving downward. But here in verse 43, the resident alien among you will rise higher and higher above you, while you sink lower and lower. He will lend to you, but you won't lend to him. Remember, previously Yahweh said that you will be the head and not the tail, but now in verse 44, he will be, the resident alien will be the head, and you will be the tail. Here's another foundational portion, verse 45, all the curses will come, pursue and overtake you until you are destroyed, since you did not obey Yahweh your God and keep the commands and statutes he gave you. Through these various sections which detail these various curses, there's this continual reminder, this is why this is happening, because you did not obey him. Verse 49 talks about, from 49 through about 52, about the promised land being invaded by foreign nations. 53 through 57 talk about the sieges that are going to take place. Horrible descriptions of the sieges are found here. And again, verse 58, if you are not careful to obey all the words of this law, which are written in the scroll, by fearing the glorious and awe-inspiring name, Yahweh your God, he will bring wondrous plagues on you and your descendants, everlasting and severe plagues, terrible chronic sicknesses. Again, why is this happening? It is happening because of their unfaithfulness. They did not show covenant loyalty. Beginning in verse, let's see here, verse 63, a really difficult verse here. Just as Yahweh was glad to cause you to prosper and to multiply you, so he will also be glad to cause you to perish and destroy you. That's hard to read, isn't it? But the reality is that God's passion for them because of his love for them and his faithfulness towards them. That same passion that is seen in God's love and faithfulness will be turned against them if they do not show love and faithfulness towards him. And beginning in verse 64, it's all going to end in captivity. It's all going to end in captivity. That Yahweh will scatter you among the peoples from one end of the earth to the other, and there you will worship other gods of wood and stone, which neither you nor your fathers have known. And you will find no peace among those nations. There will be no resting place on the sole of your foot. Instead of living in a land of milk and honey where there should have been peace for them and prosperity in every way, they're going to go to an unknown land and suffer and be miserable there. But why? Why would God do such a mean thing to them? Well, he's giving them every opportunity to obey. He's warning them here. It's not as if he never says anything about this, and then the first time they make a mistake, he flies off the handle and carries on all these things about them. No. We know God's patience. We know his care and concern, that he is warning them ahead of time. Do not do this. Do not force my hand. Because God is faithful to his promises, whether to bless or to curse. And though he is patient, and though he might have been very long suffering towards them, eventually, just as the Amorites' sin came full circle, so would the Israelites, if they were not faithful to the covenants. God is faithful to his promises, again, whether positive or negative. They were warned, don't do this or you will suffer. Unfortunately, we know Israel's history, and they did it. They failed. They showed absolute disloyalty to Yahweh, and for that, they suffered everything that we see listed here. Again, this is us knowing the rest of the story, but let's take that lesson for ourselves, that God has told us if we are faithful to him, he will be with us. He will strengthen us. And even through difficult times, we can grow and learn from that. But if we reject him, if we deny him, if we are not faithful toward him, then we will be conquered like the rest in the end. So friends, let's learn from this text here in Deuteronomy chapter 28. Let's learn from the example of Israel, so we don't fall in the same way as they eventually will. I appreciate so much you tuning in for this reading on this Friday. I hope you have a great rest of your Friday. And in case you did not see on Facebook, Blair Boyd was baptized into Christ on Wednesday. We are so thankful for that. We praise God for her faith and her being willing to act upon her faith, surrendering herself to Jesus and becoming a part of his kingdom, becoming one of his disciples. Let's pray for her and support her in her new life as a Christian. I appreciate so much you tuning in again to this reading today. Have a great rest of your Friday. If you have any questions or comments about this text, please feel free to leave that in the comments section below. We'll be back at it again tomorrow, reading together from Deuteronomy chapter 29. Hope you could tune in then. Take care, and God bless.